Hey folks, and welcome to Playing in Traffic. In today's episode, I'm actually celebrating just passing 400 subscribers, which I'm very appreciative of. Thank you very much for being on this journey with me. And what better way for me to celebrate 400 subscribers than to have a little adventure today, and it's going to be vague at times, but it's going to be addressing one thing, and that's the world of professional wrestling. You can check, I do have a playlist on my channel where I'm compiling most of my wrestling videos, which have been taking, I've been, currently in the Atlanta metropolitan area. And of course, marking out to the fact that I can, regardless if the buildings are still here or not, actually see or be around the areas where there was, whether it was NWA or Georgia Championship Wrestling, just being around the area. Because from a northerner that I am, and I've established this already in the past videos, we were really focused about WWF. If you were a 70s wrestling fan, which is when I did become a wrestling fan. So, WWF, WWF, and I kind of share the love and joy that I have for Southern wrestling, whether it was NWA or Georgia Championship Wrestling. So today's video is going to be me wandering around and apparently not seeing the exact location because of security. So right here is basically entrance for Georgia Tech University. And this, folks, this area, okay, not this building, okay, because I don't want to be, this area right here, beyond this gated fence, is 1050 Techwood Drive. And here's an entrance here, and the security does a fantastic job. I mean, I could probably find the proper permits, and I probably will, to actually go in and see if I could see the authentic studio of WTBS, right? That for a long time we're broadcasting Georgia Championship Wrestling. And there's a whole lot to talk about in regards to that, but not being able to actually see the building itself, the studio itself. I'm going to post some pictures of it. I didn't expect to go inside. I was expecting to see at least the exterior of the building. So it originally, Ted Turner's the call letters, at least in 1976, were WTCG. Then he got satellite distribution, changed the call letters to WTBS, and then the rest is absolute legend, right? Here's a building that I've seen many videos of the 605 programming. Mostly on VHS tape, and a lot more, of course, with the introduction of the internet on YouTube. But there's a studio there where there literally looked like to be about 6 to 7 rows of audience in a ring, and apparently it is just a TV studio, a very small TV studio, which, by the way, was how most wrestling programming was happening back then. But the amount of energy that building would get. You had this legendary announcer, Gordon Solie, right? You had this small confines of this studio. You had the flags hanging over the ring. Like, you always, what's great, and I think a lot of old wrestling fans think of this same thing, is when you look at a ring and its surroundings, there's a sense of joy you get knowing what arena that is, or what station that is, or what programming that is. Like, I could tell you Madison Square Garden the minute I probably saw the ring shut. Philadelphia Spectrum. And absolutely WTBS programming. Georgia Championship Wrestling. And yeah, there's a lot of legend. I mean, I feel bad that I can't. Usually I like to at least shoot the perimeter or at least shoot the exterior of the building, and that's not going to happen today, but I did want to document where I was. 1050 Techwood. You know, they talk about Black Saturday in wrestling, and that was the time when Vince bought the Briscoes stock in Georgia Championship Wrestling. And I'm going to say, even as a fan, and I've said this before in a previous video, even as a fan of the WWF time period where Vince bought that stock and then changed the programming to have Hulk and whoever else was on the program at the time. That was 1984. I understand the pain of wrestling fans in the state of Georgia, in the South, Florida, all of the above. I understand the pain because the difference between programming by the NWA and Georgia Championship Wrestling and Florida Championship Wrestling and what Vince was doing and bringing into your TV time slot that you were accustomed to seeing NWA and GCW is terrible. It's terrible. If it wasn't for the fact that we could then watch by the mid-'80s because of cable, right? Big discussion about cable and Ted Turner and the growth of the TBS network and people outside of the state of Georgia and the Atlanta area being able to see Georgia Championship Wrestling and NWA Wrestling down, with the Jim Crockett promotions. If it wasn't for that, I may very well have really bowed out of watching professional wrestling in the 80s because WWF was terrible, in my opinion, was terrible. It was terrible. And the fact that we had, at that point, finally had options because of cable, man, that meant everything to me. Where Georgia Championship Wrestling and Gordon Soley and Tommy Rich and the Freebirds, oh my God, Don Morocco, Roddy Piper. There was so many super angles shot in there. The Freebirds, pile driving DiBiase, I chased that down. It was the first time I saw that last night, that video. There's a lot of quality action in there, and the whole build-up for all the shows that were happening down here. That's what I'm going to cover today. Sorry for rambling. Welcome to Playing in Traffic. Just chasing down old Georgia Championship Wrestling locations and maybe some WCW. Maybe it's an NWA thing too today. Let's keep it moving. At the time, 1971, Christmas Day, was the first episode of Georgia Championship Wrestling that was filmed in the WTBS studios, 1050 Techwood Drive. And then I'm assuming, folks, this video is going to be interactive. I'm hoping for a lot of comments. I'm hoping for a lot of understanding. Fill this guy in from up north. But from the research that I've done, this building right here, which has multiple venues in it, Center Stage, took over that programming that was at WTBS in 1989 all the way through to 1996. And that was the Saturday night programming that happened with WCW. And you know what? In its more recent history, there's a gentleman changing letters now on the frickin' marquee. In more recent history, they've had NXT here. They've had everything here. It almost gives me the vibe that this building is almost like a 2300 arena type scenario. A lot of the programming, a lot of the events that happen at 2300, whether it's MLW, and I've seen TNA and Impact in there wrestling. 2300 building was, of course, the ECW arena. This may be something very similar with the events that they have in there, but wanted to document this building as well. Center Stage, and it was where the programming took over after the WTBS studios. In 1989 that happened. Center Stage, Peachtree, West Peachtree Street here in downtown Atlanta. NXT actually had programming at Center Stage for about 3 months, weekly programming for about 3 months in early 2018. So just want to say that too as well. So the word was out. You could produce a quality professional wrestling program for television in Center Stage. To understand the dynamic of Georgia Championship Wrestling, NWA Wrestling, and so my understanding is that every Friday night, through the 70s, every Friday night there was a wrestling event held in the Atlanta Municipal Auditorium, and every 2 weeks on the Sundays, the Omni would have the bigger event, but they'd have these lead-up events every Friday night right here. So right here at the Atlanta Municipal Auditorium, I think there's short versions of everything, the Atlanta City Arena, but right here, all the way up until 1979, when the building was sold to Georgia State University, it's now called Dahlberg Hall. I wish I could have been a fan. So what was it, 1979? So I was about 12 or 13 years old. We didn't even start going. I would be able to go to matches at the Philadelphia Spectrum at that time with my parents. So it wasn't really until the early 80s, when I turned around 17, got a group of us from Oxford Circle take the train down to the Spectrum and go to Saturday night wrestling events. But to know, like, you could have been that age, or like a little older and having a job and being able to afford tickets and go every Friday night and every second, 2 Sundays a month at the Omni, but every Friday night here. Apparently this building holds 5,500 people, but the shows were freaking amazing, and the history of this building is unbelievable. If you go to your Wikipedia, Atlanta Municipal Building, Municipal Auditorium, it has a heck of a freaking resume of a who's who in the world of entertainment. So the building opened in 1909. Apparently the president then was Howard Taft, and had like an opening event, like, wow, look at, this building, and the note within that also states that the president had a possum dinner, which is honestly something I've never heard of until that. Like, I realized that was older. That was literally 120 years ago. But for the amount of possum that were running around in Oxford Circle, you'd think maybe it was some kind of delicacy. But so yeah, there's one event right there. How about a Gone with the Wind ball for the premiere of Gone with the Wind in 1939. There's more. Originally had a brick facade here, but then there was a fire and they chose to go with marble. Oh, by the way, that's cool. Like, seriously, very cool. So brick to marble, I like that. Let me get the year of that. That fire was in 1940. And then one of the other events of note as well would be the first fight that Muhammad Ali had after his banning in 50 states because of his opposition to the Vietnam War. He fought Jerry Quarry here in 1970. First professional fight in 3 years after the banning. Okay. Also as well, the Battle of Atlanta, which is well known between Ann Gunkel and the NWA. Ann Gunkel's promotion was All South Wrestling, so that was an escape from NWA. I think I documented that. That's definitely worth reading in detail, and I certainly don't want to give a bunch of information that's not precise. Her husband did die after a match with Ox Baker. He was an owner and an owner in NWA, stockholder there, part ownership. Ann Gunkel created the All South Wrestling because of issues with the NWA ownership, and some of their events were held here at the Atlanta Municipal Auditorium. That promotion did not that was not a very long run that they had, but it was eventful. She spent a lot of money to put that promotion on the map, but it didn't take. There was a lot of issues, obstacles in her way for that too as well. The All South, the battle for Atlanta there between All South Wrestling that was started by Ann Gunkel, that ended from 1972 to 1974. That's really, really interesting reading. They considered her promotion an outlaw promotion, and that was because of issues that her husband had with the owners. They literally, that's, like I said, check that out too. If the Battle for Atlanta, 1972 professional wrestling story, obviously. There's a situation there where when her husband passed, say he had ownership upwards towards 40% in that company. They didn't even want to acknowledge that when he passed for her. They were actually just going to move on. And so I guess split his stock, his percentage ownership amongst themselves. And that's where that battle started. And that promotion started, All South. Anyway, onward to the next location. Okay, folks, so that's the last location for this video today. It's up in Buckhead, part of Atlanta. And this one's going to have a little question mark. Not that there was a couple times in this video there's been question marks. But this one is, well, let me just show you where I'm at. So yeah, that was better off there. So we're currently looking at, to the best of my knowledge, what's now called the Havana nightclub was the Gold Club. And this was in operation up until about 2001. And I should hit the story time music because I got a story that goes along with this place. Let me see if I can find some good story time music. Click. Well, back in 2001, the owner here was indicted on racketeering charges. Well documented. It involved NBA players. It involved Eric Bischoff. He didn't get in any legal trouble. I don't think the players, they were just trying to prove that the dancers, because this is a strip club, the dancers were being paid to have sex with basically the high-profile entertainment crowd. So apparently within the legal documents would be like Randy Savage, DDP, Scott Steiner, Saturn, had frequented this establishment that was called the Gold Club at the time. So one of the things that I wanted to bring up was when I was working at Wells Fargo Center in Philadelphia, I had a gentleman the night of WrestleMania was in town. I worked the Friday night SmackDown and I worked Monday Night Raw. And both those nights, our security staff had additional help from WWE's personal security within their company that they hired to help screen people that were trying to get down into the bottom level of the arena. So the gentleman who was there, he actually, small world, I had already purchased my home down here in the Atlanta metropolitan area, and he was from Marietta. And he had told me he worked here. He was a bouncer here. This dude was a monster. I wish he'd hit my channel up, and that would be even better because he could confirm. I'm pretty sure it was the Gold Club. And just talked about the amount of wrestlers that used to come through, and that's pretty well documented. The handful of well-known wrestlers that I just already stated. But I remember in a shoot interview, and I think it was Kevin Nash who said, and I'm trying to see now if there are windows on the second floor to confirm that, and you know what, this place may have changed physically. I'm hoping it is this place all together. That a wrestler had come in here and really got on some, really was having a night of their life, end up going up into a private room that must have had a window facing the exterior of the property, that wrestler threw a table through the window. Who knows if that was the case. It sounds pretty crazy. I do believe this was an operation from 1987 on till like 2001 when that court case hit, and then it transferred. Property ownership transferred to a church, and then back to a nightclub again, which now it's currently called Havana Club, a lounge, nightclub, and bar. So there was a point where this was also back when it was the Gold Club, it was a strip club. The gentleman was so cool that I worked the WWE, the events, the two events that weekend that bookended WrestleMania. So SmackDown that same night was Hall of Fame, and Monday Night Raw. I think we worked together on the SmackDown event. And one of the things he shared with me, this epic, he did say he was related to Bobo Brazil, which I marked out right away for, because he was around my age, maybe a little younger. Marked right away for that, because I was like, oh my God, I remember Bobo Brazil. So he was like, when we were kids, just speaking of him and his friends in Marietta, Georgia, in the 70s, maybe early 80s, there was a property in his neighborhood that was owned by, I don't know if it was Bobo Brazil, but him and his friends used to run in the woods behind the property and kind of peek at the goings on at this one house that literally a bunch of wrestlers hung out. And protecting the with kayfabe, that was really, really not good. When you would see Dusty Rhodes, Ernie Ladd, speaking specifically about heels and faces at a barbecue, and that was the case, and they would be back there, not snapping pictures or anything, but just peeking. And then he said, I forget who he said grabbed him,
somebody chased him through the woods and brought him back. They actually gave him hot dogs and stuff, and we're like, look, dude, you can't be telling people what you're seeing back here, because it was the whatever company, whether it was Georgia Championship Wrestling or it was NWA Wrestling, that whole group. I think Wahoo McDaniel was there. I want to thank everyone. Over the 400 subscriber mark and moving and obviously still going. Been doing videos straight through since I think last October, I think was when I started. Got some really nice trips coming up that I'm going to definitely be filming for. And I want to thank you for watching. Have a great day and a pleasant tomorrow, and look forward to seeing you all in the next episode.